Hey guys, welcome to LALoveCreative. Today we're talking about the Canon EOS RP, how it stacks up against the Canon R6, and should you add it to your kit. If you haven't, make sure you hit the bell so you can stay notified when we post new videos. Cue the intro. Now, I primarily shoot Canon. I have the Canon Z70, which I'm shooting on right now. I have the Canon R6. I shoot the Canon R5 all the time. And I was just thinking, man, I need another camera that can add to my kit without having to break the bank. Something that I could shoot YouTube videos with, something I could put, to the side if I need to get another angle, and just a photography camera that I could also take around, take around town or take when I'm traveling. That's when the Canon RP steps in. Now the Canon RP, I'm not gonna lie, when it comes to the specs, it's kinda underwhelming. It's not the best video camera. Feature-wise, it's probably not the best photography camera, but what I do like about the Canon RP is it's affordable and it's full frame, and the image is pretty good. Now I recently shot a model, her name is Jenna. I shot her a couple times on this channel, she's awesome, and we wanted to do a nighttime shoot. Now shooting photography at night is a hard thing to do with most cameras. Most cameras need a lot of light to get the best image. But I felt like this was a great situation to see if I actually like the RP as a secondary photography camera. In this video, you'll be able to see a lot of the photos that are pretty much raw. I did some color correction and some color grading, but I didn't do really any skin retouching on these photos. But I wanted you guys to see how the Canon RP stacks up against the Canon R6 when it comes to photography. Now, one thing that the Canon RP has over the Canon R6 is the Canon RP has 26 megapixels, the Canon R6 has 20. To me, that's not a big deal. When I'm shooting most of my photography work, I don't really crop in. I shoot a lot of fashion and portraits, so I'm not really worried about megapixels. But I will say that having 26 on here is a plus. Now, when I'm shooting with the Canon R6, it is just a breeze to work with. The autofocus is amazing. It has eye detect autofocus. It is just super snappy. Now, the Canon R6 has crazy high-speed bursts. I can literally push the shutter and it'll just be like, and it'll just go crazy. And it can freeze all types of motion when I'm shooting models or if I'm shooting something fast that's moving fast. I will say the Canon RP, when it comes to autofocus, it's still snappy. For the most photographers, you're not gonna, when it comes to like fast moving subjects, if you're shooting portraits or something like that and the model's not moving that fast, you're not gonna have an issue. But you will notice when you're going from the Canon R6, which is super speedy, literally can catch on to people's eyes super fast. And when you're shooting high bursts with the Canon R6, all the images are pretty much always in focus. But with the RP, you are gonna be a little slower when you're shooting. So it's not the best if you want to capture really fast moving subjects because it's not that fast. But when I kind of understood the limitations of this camera when it came to autofocus and also in terms of how many frames it could actually shoot per second, I realized that it is a great B camera and a great C camera if you have if you want to shoot something and you don't feel like using the Canon R5, or if you want to save money and just shoot photography and you're not really focused on the video. I think you'll really like the autofocus, and I think you can get over the fact that it doesn't shoot as many frames per second as like the R6 or the Canon R5. One of the ways I solved the size and the weight of the Canon RP is I got this little extension grip. It's not a battery grip. It literally just makes the camera a little larger. I love it. Honestly, without this extension grip, I don't think I would ever use this camera. But with the extension grip, it feels more like the Canon R6. And if I'm gonna shoot a wedding or if I'm gonna shoot fashion, I would want something to be a little bit more comfortable in my hands, and I'm a big fan of this grip. Another thing I am really liking when it comes to the actual image quality on the Canon RP is I feel like it's on the same level as maybe like the Canon R, EOS R, or even the Canon R6 in better lit situations. I find that the extra megapixels does, give a little bit more detail in the image. However, the Canon R6 has better low light sensitivity than the Canon RP, but I was shooting a night shoot, so most of the time when you're shooting, you're probably gonna be in more well-lit situations. One thing I noticed when I was shooting with this camera is even though the 4K on here when I'm shooting video is not the best, the image quality on 4K is a little soft. It's got a crazy crop. It's like a 1.7 times crop. But I would say that the 4K on here, it's cool to at least have it on here if you do have a wide enough lens. I like that. The problem with the 4K on this camera is if you're using 4K on this camera, you also lose a lot of the autofocus capabilities on here. I don't think it's dual pixel autofocus when you're shooting 4K. I think it's just regular contrast autofocus. Not the best. I would say that if you're gonna shoot video with this camera, stick to 1080p. I honestly would say the 1080p image on here is really good, great enough for YouTube, great enough for most camera shoots that you're gonna be doing if you don't need to shoot 4K. And I think you'll be pleased as long as you're looking at this camera as a 1080p camera. This would never be my primary video camera, so it doesn't bother me. And I also don't mind shooting an angle maybe in 1080p on here and just upscaling it in post. But if you really want a 4K camera that's better, I would go the R6 obviously, but the R6 is $2,600 and this is $1,000. So you get at least a really good 1080p camera. Another thing I'm not a big fan of when it came to the Canon RP, I would say that I don't like the fact that when you open it, the sensor is exposed. If you use the Canon R5 or the Canon R6, it has a kind of like a little blinds, these like little shade that pops up that protects the sensor. Personally, so many times when you're changing the lenses, you're going to possibly get dust or something might blow in here. So I wish it had that. Another issue you might have with the Canon RP is it only has one card slot. That's not a big deal for me. I personally, like I said, this is not my main camera. This is more my seat camera. So I don't mind it having one card slot and just kind of checking on it and just, rolling with the punches on that one. Another issue you might not like when it comes to Canon RP compared to the EOS R6, R5, EOS R, is it has a different battery. It has these like little batteries that are like, I think they're from the Canon M50. If you have a lot of those laying around, I think that'll help you. But if you want a battery that's seamless, that works with the Canon R6 and the R5 and R, you're gonna wanna go with the Canon R6 because it uses the regular old, Canon 5D batteries that we've always been using. Overall, I think the Canon RP is a great photography camera. It's a great C camera when I'm renting out my R6 or Canon C70 and I need something to shoot a YouTube video or something like that. I think it's not the best video camera, but it has good enough specs, and for the price, you really can't beat it. $1,000 for full frame and Canon color science. I am just a big fan of Canon in general, and I'm having a blast shooting photography and video with this camera. If you have any questions about the Canon EOS RP, let me know in the comments below, and I will see you next time. See you later.